go. Make sure. Just a little adjustment of the camera, and we are just about ready to go. Welcome, everyone. Let me know where you're logging on from and what you're baking today, or this weekend, or what you made this week, or anything about baking. And I hope you have questions, because we can always use more questions. We're going to start at 12 o'clock straight up. It is 12 o'clock right now. That is 12 noon Pacific time. Welcome to today's episode of the Dough Doctor. I'm your host and baking expert, Chef Colette, and today we're going to answer a bunch of questions. Good questions. Well, they're always good questions, aren't they? And then I'm going to demo the pavlova base. Remember the pav? We were talking about it a few weeks ago, and then we got sidetracked with different things. But now we're back on the track of the perfect pavlova, which is a great dessert to serve for summer. We'll also go into depth about meringues, because meringues can be many different meringues, and I'll go into that when I start demo. All right, everyone, so now let's get started with these questions. And we have people coming in from all over Los Angeles. We have people from Northern California, from Europe, from Louisiana. It's always so exciting to see you guys drop into the audience and let me know where you're from. And please put some of those weekend bakes. What are your baking goals for this weekend? We have to have a baking goal every weekend. I'll tell you my baking goal. I am taking an advanced vegan baking class, and so my goal is to complete at least 2 of my assignments this weekend. So that's my baking goal. Full disclosure. All right, everyone, so here's some questions. We had a great question from one of our bakers whose handle is Blessed Child 1987. Now, I know that's my student from AI, and I was so happy to hear from her. And she asked about cheesecakes. Her cheesecakes crack. And how could she not have her cheesecakes crack, right? Well, those of you who have made cheesecake before know that that's a common thing, to work very carefully, make sure you're at the right temperature, have the water bath just perfect, because cheesecake is a baked custard. So ideally, it's baked in a water bath. So, all things considered, everything should work out perfectly because we work very hard to make that happen. But the problem with cheesecakes, it can be just a few simple things that can cause them to crack. Now, first off, if they crack, it is not the end of the world. You can always make a gorgeous fruit topping or a fruit curd like we're going to make in next week's class, and you can put it over the top of the chilled cheesecake and just cover that stuff up. But I know how you are, bakers. You are perfectionists. So let me tell you how to troubleshoot your cheesecakes. And BTW, I actually have a fabulous recipe for cheesecake, which I was reminded of when this question came in. So maybe when we're all done with the pav, we'll go on to cheesecake. Put it in the comments if you would like to have a great base cheesecake recipe. So, and Patty's making pavlova, and then another one of our bakers, Quiche, is making a cheesecake and a Bakewell tart. Oh, the Bakewell tart is a fabulous dessert. You all know it. You all watch the Great British Baking Show. All right. Focus. I will focus on non-cracking cheesecakes. Number 1, it's a question of tension and temperature. More temperature than anything else. When we set our cheesecake up for baking, it's very important to make sure that the oven is preheated at 325 degrees. If you're reading a cheesecake recipe and the temperature is over 325, I would really doubt that source, because cheesecake, as I said, is a baked custard, so that 325 is our magic temperature. Then what you want to do is make sure that the water bath water is not too hot, not too cold. Nice hot tap water. Now you'll notice, well, I notice that a lot of recipes that call for a water bath won't give you that temperature. So normally you just want to go hot tap water. If you do cold, then that water's got to work really hard to heat up. And if you do boiling water, which was the favorite direction like 30, 40 years ago, number 1, you could scald yourself. And number 2, it really sets up the edges of the cheesecake to bake a little bit too fast, and that can cause problems. So, temperature 325 always, unless you're doing something really out of the box, and then make sure the water bath water is hot tap water. Okay, now, why do we bake a cheesecake in a water bath? The water acts as an insulator so that the hot, dry heat doesn't hit the sides of our cheesecake too quickly, dry them out, bake them, and then leave us with a raw center. We need nice, even, slow cooking. And then if you're using a springform pan and you are baking in a water bath, the springform is a 2-part pan. You have to wrap that pan in 3 layers of aluminum foil, or the water from your water bath will leak into your cheesecake. So we're at about 4 points for success here. The other thing is, bake it for however long the recipe tells you, and then turn off the oven and leave the cheesecake in there for an hour. Let it cool down on its own, nice and slow, and then remove it from the oven, get it out of the water bath, put it on a wire rack to cool until it's a little bit more room temperature. 20 to 25 minutes is usually good, and then you can wrap that cheesecake, chill it overnight. You can even freeze cheesecake. It freezes very, very well. You don't really want to serve your cheesecake. You don't want to serve your cheesecake the same day. You want to give it a good solid chill overnight. And we always talk about this. The coldest spot, well, I feel like we do. Maybe I just think it. I think I'm telling you. But remember, when you're chilling your baked goods, your cheesecakes, your custards, your creme brulee, your pastry cream, the coldest part of your refrigerator is the bottom shelf toward the back. Because remember, heat rises. All right? And when you unwrap your cheesecake, if you see a little condensation on the top of the plastic wrap, that's okay. Just unwrap it carefully, and any droplets of water can be smoothed over with an offset spatula. So that's totally normal, all right? Don't panic, ever. We can fix just about anything. And you know from watching the baking shows, and if you've worked as a pastry chef, you know that that's what we do. We MacGyver and we fix. So that's it. So Blessed Child 1987, so good to hear from you. I hope you're doing well, and that is the answer to your cheesecake question. All right, so just the next question comes from our baker Cyrus, and Cyrus has been looking for something that I call the holy grail of recipe finding. And what that is, and put it in the comments, has this ever happened to you? Have you ever had a dish in a restaurant and wanted to recreate it, but it has just not worked out? Put that in the comments below. So back in the day, about 2005, there were a bunch of cookbooks called restaurant recipes, hacking restaurant recipes. There's websites on the internet that can tell you the Olive Garden Alfredo sauce and, you know, this lava cake and chocolate lava cake or whatever, right? But there are times when some of these recipes are impossible to hack. So our baker Cyrus has been on the hunt of a butter cake that is served as part of a plated dessert at a fine dining restaurant in Long Beach, California. And the restaurant guards this recipe with its life because it's one of its signature dishes, and so they should. So I don't have the answer for this except to tell you, if you get fixated on finding a holy grail restaurant recipe, it may or may not work because restaurants have product available to them that we don't always have. It could be something as simple as the brand of the butter they use that gives that butter cake its distinctive flavor. And that may only be available through food service, or maybe there's a special butter cake flavoring that they add to beef up whatever is that elusive, fabulous flavor that our baker is looking for that he's not finding in his regular yellow butter cake recipe. The other thing too, sometimes just doubling the vanilla will help, because I can tell you, often in a pro baking kitchen, we pour, we don't measure, unless we're working someplace really lofty and it's, you know, everything needs to be super precise. Anyway, so that's what a holy grail restaurant recipe is, and sometimes we just have to go to that restaurant and enjoy it there. One last thing, remember, sometimes where we are and the experience adds to the amazing flavor of whatever it is we're eating. That's why bagels can taste better in New York, and croissants can be magical in Paris and may not have the same je ne sais quoi that they do in your own dining room or breakfast nook. All right, so that's that. And then another really fun question that came in, and maybe all of, you know, just to put you in the picture, it was about these cookies. And these cookies, this cookie I'm holding up is a Biscoff wafer. And Biscoff, the company, grinds up their cookies and they make them into a spread very similar to Nutella, all right? So I had a question come in. The baker said, "Hey, I don't like Nutella." And I thought, wow, you're the only person on the planet who doesn't like Nutella. Well, that's exaggerating. I'm sure there are people who don't like Nutella. And I'm like, okay, what's up? And so the baker asked, can I sub Biscoff cookie spread when a recipe calls for Nutella? And the answer is yes, you can. So I thought that was kind of novel. And where do you find this cookie spread? Usually in most major American supermarkets they have it, and I'm sure they have it in Europe as well. So that was kind of a fun, novel question. So yes, and the makers of Biscoff would love for you to use their cookie spread and invent all sorts of wonderful dishes with it. And Oh, I've got a non-Nutella person in the comments. That's totally fine. Well, look up this Biscoff because it could be a good substitute. Hazelnut paste also will work, and peanut butter as well. All right, everyone, so that's that. We have one more question before I sail into demo. And this question I thought was super prescient for this time of year. I had a question come in, and the question was, here, let me make sure I'm not missing anything. The question was, can I freeze pizza dough? And the answer is yes. Maybe many of you are really giving your grills, since it's summer, a great workout and making grilled pizza, which is absolutely delicious, especially topped with grilled vegetables. So, but you know, making sure you have that pizza dough and the timing is kind of a drag. You could make your pizza dough one day, freeze it for up to 2 weeks, and then use it, and I'll talk about what you do with it. But one thing, you can use your favorite pizza dough recipe, and what you want to do is you want to take that pizza dough through at least, well, usually on average, pizza dough needs an hour of bulk fermentation. Let it double in size. Then gently degas it, because that means that the dough has had time to fully hydrate and the yeast has had a chance to create some carbon dioxide gas activity. So your your dough will be more flavorful. Then what you want to do, depending on, and usually I'll freeze like 8-ounce balls of dough, sometimes 12, sometimes the whole thing, but you need like a gallon-size Ziploc bag, and you're gonna coat the inside of the bag with olive oil, a film of olive oil. And Pistol Packing Mama is, she says she does this, and then the only thing I would worry, we're gonna piggyback onto your comment, okay? So you've got olive oil. There's olive oil in the dough, and so olive oil. Fill the bag with olive oil. Seal it so that there's a little bit of space. You know, make sure it's don't put it in the food saver. We don't want it airtight in case the dough needs to expand a little bit. And then label it, date it, and throw it in your freezer. When you want to use it, the day before you want to grill your pizza or bake your pizza, whatever you're doing, take it out of the freezer, put it in the refrigerator, let it thaw long and slow overnight, and then roll it out the next day. You'll find it rolls out like a dream, and I bet Pistol Packing Mama can back me up on that, because the gluten has had a chance to really relax. Not so much when it's frozen, because everything just stops, but in that thawing time, it really just, the gluten relaxes and it rolls out beautifully. The one thing that she says, she leaves her dough out for 24 hours. I'd be a little worried. You can build flavor, but I'd be quite concerned about too much carbon dioxide activity. But if it works for you, but my general consensus, and I've frozen and worked for a lot of places that worked with pizza dough, would be mix your dough, bulk ferment it for an hour, hour and a half, degas it, prepare your bag or however you're freezing it, and but remember, if there's olive oil in the dough, olive oil on the pan, or olive oil in the bag, and then freeze it for up to 2 weeks. And it's really just having a little bit of that mise en place done. Oh, Pistol Packing Mama says she keeps it in the refrigerator for 24 hours. Woo! I'm breathing a sigh of relief. Well, I'm glad we got that clarified. Okay, so that's freezing pizza dough. You can do that all year round. But I think especially in summer, it's nice to have things done ahead so we don't feel like we're trapped in the kitchen and we are missing the beautiful summer weather. All right? Okay, everyone. So that's it for our questions. Now, let's get started on these pavlova bases. I think the pavlova, and I'm not going to wax too poetic, though I could go on forever. I think the pavlova is one of the most romantic desserts ever created, and it's the national dessert of both New Zealand, who did create it, a pastry chef from New Zealand created the pav, and Australia, and I think they fight about it, but I'm not sure. I think I might have someone in the audience who lived in New Zealand who might be able to tell us if Australian and New Zealand pastry chefs argue about who owns the pavlova. All right, you guys, let's get started. So this recipe will be live on my website on Monday. There'll be a post about it directing you to the website and the recipe. But I'm going to show you right here how to build the pav. So let's get started. I have the mixer set up, and we're going to use the whisk attachment. Of course, we're whipping egg whites. And I did wipe out the mixer with a little bit of lemon juice. And that's a pretty good idea because we want to make sure the mixer is fat-free. Now, I know you all have exemplary dishwashing skills, but just to be absolutely clear, make sure that everything is impeccably clean. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to dump our egg whites into the mixer bowl. As a matter of fact, I'm so organized today, I'm really on my game, well, I'm trying to be, that I'm going to catch this action in my overhead cam as well as my Instagram cam. All right, so we have our egg whites, and then I'm dumping in cream of tartar. Now, cream of tartar likes to clump, so just take that whisk attachment and break it up a little. It doesn't have to be perfect, my pastry perfectionists. I know you like perfect. I know you do. And now we're going to go to medium speed, just as if we were making macaron, and we're going to whip this until it looks like cappuccino foam and is no longer snotty. So, what that means is, what do I mean by no longer snotty? It won't look green. Now here's the thing about the pav. We break all the meringue rules with the pav, and it is called the pav. That's what they call it down under, and so I will refer to it as the pav from here on in. All right, so we break the rules. When we make macarons and many other meringues, we're fixated. We watch them like a hawk, but we're going to actually beat the heck out of the pav meringue. And the reason we can do that is the ratio of egg white to sugar is just about 1:1, so this is super stabilized by the sugar. And this works for the pav. It doesn't work for everything else, but it works great for the pav. Now the pav also gets some cornstarch, which helps with drying out the shells. So we're going to whisk the sugar and the cornstarch together because we're just about ready with our egg whites. Yeah. So check this out. I'm going to show you how they look. They are frothy and they are not green at all. Okay? If you stare down, if you tilt the bowl, they don't look liquidy or green. They look like foam on your latte. Okay? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to rein in the cornstarch and sugar mixture. Now, depending on your comfort level with this whole reining in business, you can grab a tablespoon and spoon in the sugar, or you can pour it. Now, in the Encyclopedia of Baking and Pastry, what exactly is the speed of reining in the sugar? You want to count 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000 as you're letting that sugar slide into the egg white mixture. The mixer is going. You're on medium speed. Try to aim in between the moving whisk and the side of the bowl. I need my glasses for this. And again, you could spoon it in, it's totally fine. Now our next ingredient is going to seem bizarre, but it is, pavlova has a little bit of vinegar added to it. I'm using raspberry. I'm throwing it in. And then I'm turning up the mixer. And I know you're thinking, my God, she just threw raspberry vinegar into a meringue. What is going on? It's a characteristic of a pavlova. You can use plain vinegar. You can use apple cider vinegar. Or the only thing I wouldn't use is balsamic. I mean, you could. That would actually be okay. But that would be my last choice. The vinegar offsets the sweetness of the pavlova, and it just gives a little bit of tang. Now you may have noticed, once the vinegar went in, I absolutely revved the mixer, and we're going to even go faster. It will be in the instructions, but I have folded the paper in half and then in thirds, and I drew a circle in the center of each square, okay? And then you're going to flip it over so the pencil marks are on the bottom so they don't show up on your pad. Sorry that was so loud. So check this out. This is one we can relax about. It is super stable. You can just do this all day long, and it's beautiful and glossy. I could whip it. In fact, your directions will say 8 minutes. That's the max. But you can actually, it's got a beautiful state. It's just gorgeous. But but I'm not going to torture you with the sound of that mixer. So, but this is fine. Okay. And then I have a pastry bag fitted with an 806 open star tip. If you don't have the tip, you don't need it, but it does, the tip helps. Now what I like to do is stick a little bit of my thumb into the bag, so whatever it is I'm going to load into the bag is not going to come falling out the bottom. I think I hit the 1 million macaron mark, probably in 2018, and I learned from macarons that sticking a little bit of the bag into your tip helps things be less messy. Now bakers, you know this. No matter, whoops, I did it anyway. Well, that's all right. You know, this kind of went right off the rails, but that's why we clean up and we move on. So you know to only fill a piping bag halfway full. So I'm trying to be a sustainable baker. And I'm trying to get you guys to be sustainable bakers. So I'm using a piping bag that is not as tall as I would have liked. So that's why I made a little bit of a mess. But life does go on. And we'll be okay. Right? Hey, if that's the worst thing that happens today, good Lord. I like using the shell. Now, by the way, pavlovas can be plopped with a spoon because the pavlova was created in honor of the legendary ballerina Anna Pavlova. And it was meant to look like her beautiful tutu from her famous ballet, The Dying Swan. All right? And most of that costume was made of feathers. So plopping and finessing with a spatula is totally fine. But I thought I would demonstrate piping because I have a feeling you guys, there are several of you in the audience who enjoy piping. So check this out. Just like pâte à choux that we did a couple weeks ago, I have a blob of the meringue in each corner to hold down the parchment paper. Otherwise, the parchment paper is going to move. And then the other thing that's happening is make sure whenever you make a template that your pencil or ink marks are facing downward, because they will show up on whatever it is you bake. And I know we have some former cordon bleu instructors in the audience, and they can back me up on that. All right. So now it doesn't matter. You can start on the outside, and you're going to just build to the center, and then you're going to go again until they're at least an inch tall. I like to go 1.25 inches. Now, they are not hollow. They are not the hollow meringue that the French love to make and fill with berries is called a vacherin. This is not that. This is a path. This is solid. You can start in the center. I kind of like to start in the center because then my center is more stable. So it's actually go around 3 times. I'll do one more. If they're too short, well, they are going to shrink. And if they're too short, pipe too short, then they are not, they're like hockey pucks. They're not nice. So make sure to get them nice and tall. And last thing, before I give you the baking instructions, remember the recipe will be live on Monday. The last thing is you could trace an 8-inch cake pan and build a large pav and cut it in slices to serve a crowd. Now the thing about the pavlova is we also get a break in that we're going to bake these to a pale cafe au lait color. They don't have to be dead white, which is great. There are classic French desserts, the marjolaine and vacherin, which I mentioned before, where the meringue, in order for the dessert to be classically correct, the dessert has to be dead white, like my jacket. But the pav is sunny and it is more casual and so beautiful. It can have a little tinge of that cafe au lait. So we're going to bake at 275 for 45 minutes. Then turn the oven off, open and close the door to vent any humidity and steam, and I mean open, close, don't stare at it, and then you're going to let it sit in there for a minimum of 3 hours, and then, or overnight, and you'll have your pav for the next day. So that's the skinny on the pavlova. It was created by a New Zealand pastry chef in the mid-1920s who fell in love just by sight with the beautiful ballerina Anna Pavlova. He managed to get to one of her performances, was so inspired by her beauty, her dancing, and that costume that he created a dessert in her honor. Next weekend, we're going to finish the pav. I'm going to show you how to make a perfect curd, and I'll have the components to assemble a complete pav with curd, chantilly cream, and berries. I can't thank you enough for joining me. We went a little bit over our 30 minutes, but I hope you enjoyed demo. And any questions that come up during the week with your baking adventures, never hesitate to ask. Take care, everyone. Stay safe, stay happy, and happy baking. Bye. Until next week.